Welcome to Lead Where You Live, Tucson Voices in Leadership. I'm Jamie Leon-Guerrero.
And I'm Raysun Frost. This podcast is all about real people leading with heart in our community.
We believe leadership isn't about titles, it's about action. And Tucson is full of people making a difference in big and small ways.
Join us as we chat with inspiring voices who are showing up, stepping up, and shaping Tucson's future.
Let's get into it.
Hello, and welcome to Lead Where You Live. This is Raysun Frost.
And I'm Jamie Leon-Guerrero. And today, our guest is Josie Milliken. She is a Ph.D. and is the Dean of Distance Education at Pima Community College in Tucson, Arizona. With over 20 years of experience in higher education, Josie has held various roles, including department head, English faculty, and faculty senate president, and is the West Regional Board representative on the Instructional Technology Council. In addition, as a certified yoga and meditation instructor and clinical yoga therapist, Josie is passionate about promoting multidimensional health, well-being, and human rights, and has offered workshops and presentations for a variety of organizations and conferences on topics in the realms of higher education, artificial intelligence, mindfulness, and wellness. Welcome, Josie, to our show.
Thank you. It's great to be here. We are very excited to have you, and we are going to start off with a really fun question, which is, where does your name come from?
My name. So it's a very exciting and intriguing story, one of those that many can probably identify with, where your parent shares that they liked how it sounded. So that's the basic story. And I can also share that interesting thing about my name is that it's fairly rare. It was rare growing up. There were no other Josies. It's just Josie. It's not Josephine, as a lot of people like to ask. I was born in the 70s. And so at that time, there was a cartoon show of Josie and the Pussycats. A lot of people are probably familiar with the movie around the early 2000s that came out, Josie and the Pussycats. And the cartoon predated that. It was an early 70s cartoon. It was started as a comic as part of the Archie Comics universe, and from there became a cartoon, Saturday morning cartoon. And actually, as a child, I was not familiar with that cartoon for some reason. I lived in a small town in Washington State, and so I don't know if it just didn't come in through the antenna or what, but all I knew was that kids would say to me and sing to me, Josie and the Pussycats, and I had no real idea what they were talking about, but that was my very early experience with my name. And so I never really liked my name when I was young. I wanted a more common name with a Y at the end, or an I with a heart. But over the years, I've begun to appreciate its novelty and its connection to 70s pop culture.
That's actually really cool, and not cool that you didn't like your name when you're young. I'm there with you. I was called Raysun. Kids can be cruel, right? But I do think that for a lot of us, learning to grow into who we are as an individual, and that being your name as well, can be a really powerful thing. So,
and Josie and the Pussycats, that rock band, was a really great emerging example of strong women, strong leaders, and set the sort of tone of the feminist movement and stay as good examples and role models today.
I remember that cartoon. I was also born in the 70s. Yeah.
Me too. We're all there.
Yay!
Girl rock band. Maybe we should start up our own, Josie.
Well, Josie, where in Tucson do you live, and what do you love most about that area?
I live near the University of Arizona, and I live in a neighborhood called Feldman's, and it is in the area of Stone and Speedway, Lee, and Park. So in that sort of realm. And I love so much about where I lived. Walkable, can go downtown, can go to the U of A, can go to the downtown Pima Community College campus. And The houses in this neighborhood are very charming, very quaint. A lot of them are rentals to college students because it's so close to the University of Arizona. And it's also a nice location to easily get out to some of the really beautiful areas for hiking in southern Arizona. And I absolutely love to go out in the desert with the saguaro cactuses and the ocotillo, whether that might be Tumamoc or farther out at one of the Saguaro National Parks or Mount Lemon for some pines. And that's one of the things about this region that I think a lot of people don't associate with it if they are out of town, is some of the really beautiful landscaping and hiking that's natural desert. And also with the pine on Mount Lemon, it's really incredible.
Yeah. And I think I work with a lot of relocation clients, and I think we actually attract a lot more people to Tucson because of the extensive outdoor environment that we have access to and the variety of things that we have access to. So I find that to be really interesting. I guess I don't know if there are any stats out there on this, the percentage of people who live in Tucson who are outdoor people, right? But I have a feeling compared to other places I've lived, it would be really high.
Yeah.
And I do think that, it's always interesting to hear people who love being near downtown, and like you're basically saying, I've got the best of both worlds. I live near downtown, near the university, near all these things that I want to do, but I also live close enough and have access to things that I want to do outside that are the totally different opposite of the spectrum. So
I'm on the other side of the freeway from you, Josie, and I do feel like the access to the freeway is a plus as well. There's none of that long in town driving. So I love that area. I used to live in Dunbar, so on the other side of Speedway, but I love that area. I love Tucson.
tell us a little something about you that most people don't know.
Mm. Well, that's an interesting question. Most people, I would say, well, one of the things is I'm a yoga teacher. So I work, as you noted in my biography, I work full time at Pima Community College as a dean, and I also actively teach yoga. So you can find me in the early mornings leading a class downtown at the YMCA or at the University of Arizona for campus rec. And I've been teaching yoga for going on 12 plus years. And it is something that is very important to me, and I love sharing it with others. And it's a way to stay grounded and mindful and embodied, which now more than ever is so valuable. On a different note, I was also a trained sushi chef in Austin, Texas in the 90s. I worked at a little place called Mr. Wasabi's that also had a tiki lounge that offered karaoke.
Okay, that is totally unusual.
I love it. Is it still around? I feel like we need to go to Austin and have sushi karaoke in like luau moo or something.
Wish it was still around, but I saw its rise and its quick fall when I showed up to work one day and the manager was standing outside looking up at a window and trying to figure out how to get inside because there was a lock on the door from the property management company. And that was the end of Mr. Wasabi's sushi bar and tiki lounge.
So do you still make sushi rolls and stuff at home? Is that something that it kind of grew on you by working there?
I did for a long time, and I do love sushi. I am a vegan, so I gravitate, of course, to the more avocado, cucumber, mushroom. And I did for a long time, and I need to get back into it. I have all the equipment. My seaweed is probably really dry, and I probably don't get new seaweed. It doesn't last long here in the desert. But back then, so I was living in Austin, and then I am from the Northwest, so Washington State. And so near Seattle, if you can imagine, and I lived in Seattle for some time. And that, while I don't eat fish or shellfish, that is a wonderful place for sushi because it's so well known for seafood, fresh seafood, Pike Place Market. And so being in that surrounding, I was inspired to make it all the time. And I also worked in a Japanese restaurant in Seattle for a while. So, but lately in the desert, I don't know what it is. I feel less inspired to make sushi here. I don't know if it's because we're not so much a seafood capital. Well, we are a city of gastronomy. I don't naturally think of sushi as being part of that.
Yeah, I love sushi. My family's from an island, Josie, and I used to date a fisherman. So I'm used to, as they were backing in the boat, they're like cutting up like fresh sashimi and stuff. So whenever I love sushi. Whenever I get seafood here, I'm always questioning like, how fresh is this? Because you just don't know. But I love it. I love sushi. And if you ever want to teach a class on how to clean a fish, I would love. I don't know how. So I would love any tips or tricks on how to properly use fish.
Well, maybe we should expand our band and to bring in Southwest sushi restaurants. Not even imagine what that would be, but I'm sure it would be successful.
I'm sure it would be yummy. I mean, it's rice, right? Like,
Josie and the Sushi Cats.
Yes. We could work on that. I mean, that's a good start, Jamie. I think we can work on that.
goodness.
Well,
Jamie, I'm starting to think the way all of our podcasts are going that
we have like all these little mini business adventures.
really related to food. So
Yes, yes, so many foodies.
Just need to get some investors, right?
right.
Thank you for the laugh, Josie. We're going to move on to a leadership question. And we want to know how leadership shows up in your life, like the personal side, professional, kind of the Tucson community life. How does leadership look like in your life?
See, leadership, not in the traditional way. One of my favorite sayings is we can all lead from the seat we are in. And there are opportunities for any of us to lead. And that may take so many different forms. It may take in education, teaching a class and making a difference for a student. So perhaps being flexible with a deadline and that flexibility being the factor that helps that student stay in the class and succeed. Or being a student and taking on an interesting topic to research and sharing about that topic with classmates and empowering classmates to understand, whether it be innovations for potholes or challenges related to buffalo grass and what to do with it, or any number of issues and challenges that we face in Southern Arizona. So, information sharing. Starting this podcast is very much something that you both embarked on, and that is leadership. Bringing something to the Tucson community to celebrate leadership is something that we need, and it's such a great value and part of Greater Tucson leadership. I also very much adhere to the belief that leadership is empowering others around you and helping others around you grow. Growth as a leader is important. And at some point, that spills over into how can I empower those whom I work with to be able to lead in their own ways and find their strengths so that they can then build on those strengths to then empower others around them. And I find that through that approach, it's one of the best ways to support really great teamwork, really great work being done. It's also research shows that that form of leadership results in the highest functioning teams, the teams that are able to be most productive. And so I strongly feel that leadership is not about a single person, but about more of an ecosystem of lifting each other up and giving each other voice and showing appreciation of those around us and taking care to praise others and celebrate others' work and recognizing that every accomplishment it's not a single individual. It really takes a team.
Love your reference to ecosystems. So I have a science background and conservation ecology, sustainable development. So ecosystems right up my alley. But mostly because, we've all heard there's no I in team, right? That's just kind of one of the phrases we grow up learning. But thinking about it in terms of an ecosystem, I feel like is so much more, it's so bigger and so much more exemplary of what it really means to have leaders that you're working with and to be a leader and how to show up, and then just the there's no I in team, right? Because that's still focusing on the I, versus an ecosystem is how all the different pieces interact with each other to create something.
I
So
feel like that's the way that we've been moving for the past few decades. Is America is very much an individualistic country. That notion that we should each of us individually be able to pick ourselves up and become successful, and as long as we have that drive and interest, we will be successful. And of course, we know that it's not so simple. And leadership in America, the United States, has sort of followed along in that same vein. And now I feel like we are shifting, and I'm seeing it's much more effective to think of it more as a systems approach, like an ecosystem, recognizing that we are not solitary individuals that have no impact on each other, that our leadership is reflected in the behaviors of those around us, like what we give gives back to us. It's very much like if there is a component of the ecosystem, like I think of those little augers, and you know how in the auger in biology, and you put a sample of something in it, a culture, and it grows and it might be toxic. Like if there's that component in an ecosystem, it eventually spreads to the whole ecosystem and will cause a lot of damage and will result in some unhealthy behaviors, unhealthy dynamics. And so really I see leadership as something much more collective, that we're all responsible for the health of an organization. And so if we see it that way, we all feel accountable. We're all invested in the success of the whole system. So I love science too. What is the background, Raysun? What specific area of science did you study?
So I have a master's in conservation ecology and sustainable development. So during my master's, I studied the Etowah River basin system and how policies, basically, it was a multi pronged approach working with the community, individuals, businesses, and government to create a watershed approach to saving particular species of fish. And we utilize technology like the GIS or stuff like that to sort of map out and story tell all these different components at a watershed level. So basically, my work was focused on outreach and interconnections, how to create connections to lift up whatever your goal is, right? Because that same idea, you don't operate in isolation. You can't just go out and have some law that says XYZ to save a species or XYZ to, you know, protect kids from lead. It's all part of an ecosystem, and you have to look at the whole picture in order to create something that will make a difference. Yeah, that's
And living in the desert, we become very much aware of when things seem out of balance. And this last spring was very dry, and so we missed out on those wildflowers that we often see. They were there, but not so much as they have been in past years, where you could go out hiking in certain elevations and just see the most beautiful, colorful, fragrant wildflowers. And this year notice things, and I've been noticing things, as we all have, like our ocotillo flowering but not having any green, and this is in December. Like you can tell when a system is out of balance, and it's not just a single plant. It is multiple different things, and it affects the animals, and it affects the wildlife as a whole, and the whole behaviors, the ground, the dirt, the pH levels. It's all part of it.
Yep. And as you were mentioning and talking about how each one of us, no matter where we are in our life, in our jobs, are part of creating that team, that ecosystem, the organization, and its success or failure. What would you say? Because that's a big part of what GTL's mission is, right? Is to help individuals recognize that no matter where they are, that they are a leader and how to find those things. So, what do you say is your biggest takeaway from Greater Tucson Leadership Program, and how has it impacted either you or the Tucson community since graduation?
My biggest takeaway, I feel like it's still evolving because I'm still connected. I'm connected through issue days. I went to Camp GTL, which
You there. So, that was awesome.
I loved it, and I look forward to the next Camp GTL. And I would say that ongoing connection is one of my favorite things, what I'm most grateful for. The actual experience of all the issue days and learning about all these different facets of Greater Tucson, that was so valuable and so interesting. And what I love now is being part of different events where I get to meet people from different classes. And because each one I've learned has a different flavor about it. And I've learned that from participating in issue days, specifically the arts and culture issue day, ever since I graduated in the 2022 class. And I really love the network of Greater Tucson leadership. I like seeing people from Pima Community College step in. I love finding out that others at Pima Community College are also G2L graduates or others throughout the community. And so it's really much more of a network than I ever could have anticipated.
Yeah. Which is really one of the things that it's meant to do, is to show you that, we have so many connections and there's so many different things that are a part of Tucson, like to open our eyes to outside of just our little, everyday interactions that we have with people, right? To expand that and to allow ourselves to grow into that. And so that's wonderful that that's something you've taken away from it.
It very much is an ecosystem.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I keep learning about new things that I didn't know that GTL does, like Title One schools. So I'm very curious and looking forward to learning more about the other programs and
Hmm.
understanding more about the full impact that GTL really has on the community.
It's pretty impressive. I'm really proud to be part of it. And I love alum like you, who just stay engaged. That brings me so much joy. Like just to see that everyone keeping engaged. That's the best part. It's those connections. What is something you're currently unlearning? And you'll go first, and then we'll answer after.
Oh my goodness, staying at the surface level, I see.
This is not rapid fire.
Oh my goodness, I about unlearning and I I find that this also draws upon my yoga practice, which is a lot about recognizing some of the patterns and routines that really end up habituating, reifying, solidifying, calcifying, whatever you want to call it, and beyond our actual awareness. And contribute to us being rooted in routines or even negative and harmful behaviors that we're not even aware we have, whether that be thought patterns or whether that be health, more like what we eat, what we consume, all of that on a daily basis. And so I'm constantly trying to or working on becoming more aware of life on an everyday basis, being very mindful of the time that we have because we know that it's so limited, and thinking about how do I want to spend this limited time on this earth and making smart decisions with that in mind. Like, how do you balance taking care of others with taking care of yourself, with working and self care, and what does that even look like? And finding that out for oneself is very much a process of self discovery. And we are always growing, we are always evolving. And so you said this was a quick response, I think. So I've continued for quite a while, but I'll just end there and say that it's just always valuable for us to be aware of some of the habits that we take on over time, and checking in and being mindful, and always be willing to grow.
Yeah. I feel like something I'm currently unlearning is similar to yours, but more on like my personal boundaries. For a long time, I felt like if I put up a boundary that made someone or the other person uncomfortable, or like they didn't like this boundary that I needed to put up, that it was the bad person, or I wasn't making the right choice, or this was not a good boundary. And now I'm learning that it's like essential it's okay to put up a boundary that's for your like peace, your like mental health. And I'm really living in this like, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to say no to this thing, or I'm going to put up this boundary, and how that person receives it is not for me to carry. And that is where I've been living in this last year. And I would just say it out loud. That's not for me to carry. And it has been hard, especially professionally, right? When you're just like, yeah, I don't want to do that, or I don't feel comfortable doing that, but I've been doing it. And every time I do it, feels a little better. And yeah, I'm just remembering how people receive it. If my intent is like peace and safety, is not for me to carry. And I'm currently unlearning that. Like, I don't need to worry how people receive things, is not for me to carry. So,
I want to recognize how hard that can be. Boundary setting, like even getting to the point to know this is where I can set a boundary and know that that's an option. For some of us who were raised to be people pleasing or a certain way, it is really challenging. And in talking about leadership, that's one of the ways that we can lead. Because when we do set a boundary, that's teaching another person about boundaries and how empowering that can be. And so I really like how you phrase it with, that's not for me to carry. And I forgive myself for buying into this notion that I should be responsible for everyone else's feelings, or more accurately, my perception of what their feelings might be.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say mine is kind of a combination of your two pieces, which is really unlearning um external allowing external factors to set my habits and what I do in my life. Right. So I have operated, sometimes it happens because you're a mom and that's just the way it is. Sometimes it happens because you have an employment position where it's very particular, right? You follow their rules and structures and guidelines. There's lots of reasons it happens. You're giving, you want to help other people. Like all these things are part of my reasons why. But basically, I guess am learning, therefore, I am unlearning how to be reactive only and learning how to be more proactive about creating the life I want with the habits I want versus just letting life happen to me and reacting to it as a result.
That one hit, Rayson.
And it is definitely a in process, unlearning process. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Is there a specific example you have that will show that?
Yeah, so this may seem like a simple one, but if you've gotten a email from me recently, I have put in there a like that when I accept phone calls, like or when I'm my working hours kind of aspect, because I'm an entrepreneur and as a realtor, I have, boundless or boundless hours, and it's not set by a typical work schedule. And so I'm setting expectations clearly up front with people that here's when you should expect calls from me or to respond to something. And I'm not just going to answer at all times of the day or night or whatever. And I'm doing that actually not just to set expectations for them, but for myself. So like when I get a phone call, I literally have to be like, you don't have to respond right away. When I get a text, I don't have to respond right away. I'm going to finish doing what I'm in the process of doing for myself or for another client or whatever it is. So it's just those little steps of just that's very reactive, right? To have someone text you or call you and you have to pick up right away. It doesn't mean that I won't necessarily say, hey, I'm in a meeting or I'm busy. Can I call you back or can I text you back? Or if it's important, text me. It doesn't mean that I don't 100% not respond depending on what the situation is. It just means that I don't allow myself to fully take on this other person's need when I'm in the middle of doing something for myself or another
Yeah,
person.
I love that.
That's amazing. And I imagine just in the real estate world, because you're dealing with people who that's really intense, that moment and all the different, because you're dealing with huge amounts of money and people's emotions in their lives. And I imagine that you really need to set those boundaries again and make people aware that you're not there to be constantly vigilant to their needs.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And so now that you've answered the tough boundary breaking question, we get to do the easy peasy rapid fire questions. So I'm going to start. Are you more of an optimist or pessimist?
Optimist.
What's your favorite season?
In Tucson, it is fall.
Open floor plan or a traditional home style?
Traditional.
What's a tradition you hope to pass down to future generations?
Levity.
Movie theater or streaming movies?
Both. Depending.
What's a texture you find particularly comforting?
Cotton.
Pizza or pasta?
Pasta.
Yeah. What's a hobby you'd love to get into?
Stand up paddleboarding.
Do it.
Where do you go though for that around here?
Patagonia Lake. I went there last weekend. Patagonia Lake.
I've even done it over here at like Christopher Columbus Park. It's not the best lake, and thankfully I'm really good at it and I don't fall in, but I love it.
A little bit of extra pressure there. Did not
Yeah.
fall in because we know what's in that water here.
Mentor or to be mentored?
Both.
So now is your moment to kind of share with everyone listening or watching if you have any projects or events you'd like to promote. What you got going on?
Well, as you noted, I work at Pima Community College, and I absolutely love Pima. Pima does so much for the community, and there is so much about Pima that I feel people aren't aware of. Pima is a really cost-effective option if you want to go to a big university, but you're worried about the costs. You can start your first 2 years at Pima and then transfer to the UA or another university, saving thousands of dollars. And we have amazing faculty, amazing classes. We have a growing dual enrollment area where a lot of students are in high schools are able to take some college credit classes, creating a nice transition into Pima Community College. So I work specifically with the online programs. And so we have 24 programs and certificates fully online in so many different areas, ranging from business to education and computer science. And we also offer a fully online transfer. So if someone wants to go to the University of Arizona or another university, they can take their transfer block fully online and then move to a university. So many flexible options, and anyone is welcome to reach out to me to learn more. And we also, in terms of events, we have these fantastic Super Saturday events. And this is a way for Pima student affairs advisors, people who can help with financial aid, people who can help students enroll, people who can help answer questions. They are present at the downtown campus from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on these select Saturdays. And so the next one is coming up on June 7th. And so if anyone wants to just have an opportunity to speak with someone from Pima directly and learn about what could be possible for them, with knowing whether they could get credit for some of their previous classes, just show up and we would be happy to help.
Do they happen once a month?
It depends on in the semester we are, and I can send you the following dates. And so if we have show notes, we can put those in the show notes.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Josie. We really loved having you on here and getting to know you even more.
Thank you.
Now I'm actually dreaming about sushi.
I need to do more yoga.
Yoga, more stand-up paddleboarding,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
more 70s music. Rock.
Well, thank you again.
This was a joy to talk with you both, and so fun to see you in person and to have the opportunity to chat at different events. And so I really enjoyed you taking the time and inviting me to the podcast.
Thank you.
Such a neat podcast.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Lead Where You Live. We hope you're feeling inspired by our guest's story and the impact they're making right here in Tucson.
If you love this conversation, help us spread the word. Share this episode, subscribe on YouTube, and tag a local leader who should be featured next.
Because leadership starts with showing up, and we know Tucson is full of incredible people doing just that.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Lead Where You Live.